What would it take to change the world? Provide food to the hungry and water to the thirsty. Teach children to read and keep them healthy. Shelter families and train a new generation. Give the poor a chance to better themselves. Create a worldwide network of peacemakers and conquer a disease that has killed or crippled millions. Could one person do it? What about 1.2 million?
My name is Frank Wessel.
Tamara DeWill.
Gaston Cabate.
Pedreta.
Eu sou Adélia Vilas.
Dr. Naresh Goya.
Mon nom est Awa Omaru.
Gary Parrish.
Warren Kaufman.
Lisa Simmons.
Eric Kimani.
Meu nome é Eduardo.
Singh Arora.
Megan Coutinho.
These men and women are changing the world. They're members of Rotary. Professionals and community leaders organized into more than 32,000 clubs worldwide. They volunteer at the local, regional, and international levels and dedicate themselves to a simple motto: service above self.
That's what Rotary is all about. Vision to see, faith to believe, and courage to act.
So many of us, we sit back and we go, gee, I'd really like to help somewhere in the world, but I don't know how to do it. And Rotary gives you all the tools you need.
Personalmente tengo.
Just the fact that you are a Rotarian opens doors all over the world.
For members of Rotary, no project is too big. Working with UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and the CDC, Rotary has immunized more than 2 billion children against polio and reduced the disease by more than 99% worldwide.
With not too many dollars, these Rotarians and our partners are doing a tremendous job, very effectively, very efficiently.
Rotary has spent more than $500 million on international scholarships and foreign exchange, while its graduate-level programs in conflict resolution train peacemakers from around the world.
When I started working for Interpol at the United Nations, I already had the background to understand international relations.
For Rotary members, the reward is immense and immediate.
Helping others is one of the things that they really enjoy. It makes my day.
The salary I receive spiritually is so huge that you cannot put a value on it.
Being a Rotarian is almost selfish. Yes, I help people, but I get so much in return.
When our world seems senseless and even hopeless, Rotary Club members of all races, colors, and creeds join together to care.
Hopefully we can bring some hope and some help, emotionally as well as physically.
To protect.
The job that is to be done can be done.
To connect.
But no one has a dry eye at the end of these projects because the kids will come back and ask for a picture with their doctor.
And to make a difference.
It is possible because we are Rotarians. We can do it. We should do it.
But even for 1.2 million volunteers, changing the world is no easy task. Learn how you can become involved.
It only takes a drop to make a river. And all we have to do is just make sure that we are in the right direction, we are committed to it, and it will get done.
Rotary International. Ordinary people working together to accomplish extraordinary things.
Welcome to Rotary. With your unique skills and perspective, you are joining a global network of problem solvers, drawn together by a desire to make a difference. Together, we can be bolder. When you share your ideas and connect with others, it's not just your community that benefits. You'll grow as a leader and feel a shared sense of purpose that comes from finding lasting solutions to big problems. Get involved in a way that's meaningful to you. Find a mentor. Sign up for a training. Volunteer in a service project. Or attend a global event. You are now connected to 1.2 million people of action who unite to create lasting change. across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Welcome to Rotary.
We are this close.
We're this close.
To Urchick models.
This close to making history.
We are this close.
We are this close.
We're this close.
This close to changing the world. We are this close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease
ever again.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
Because we are this close to ending polio.
We are this close to ending polio.
We are this close
to changing the world.
This close. All we need is you.
Is you.
It's you.
Is you.
We are this close. This close.
Be a part of history at rotary.org/endpolio.
Every Rotary project anywhere in the world always started out with one person who had an idea. And then they were able to grow and develop that idea by getting other Rotarians engaged and using that powerful network of Rotary to really change the world.
I want to make a difference, and I see Rotary as being the best vehicle worldwide to be able to make a difference to the community as a citizen of the world.
It's always a blessing to give back what you have received. Rotary is just a sweet place to be. The fellowship, the ability to serve. It's not about how old you are or how much you have.
We don't have to be Prime Minister to lead our country. Even one Rotarian can do lots of things.
People want to feel involved, and that's how they feel that they're actually contributing and giving something back to the society.
Every Rotarian's needs are different. And if we don't know what their needs are, then how are we going to fulfill them?
Right after someone gets in Rotary, you have to start fostering the opportunity for them to take a leadership role, whether they choose to or whether the club chooses them to.
Leader is a role model of everybody.
If you've got the heart, you're going to take your club forward in some fashion. And that's what it's really all about, all of us working together.
Teaching, leading, and then transferring the responsibility of what we are doing to them. The rewards are huge. The satisfaction's enormous. You know, I'm very proud to be a Rotarian.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests, and welcome to Infinite Possibilities, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, presented by District 6960 and co-sponsored by Rotary Zones 33 and 34. I am District Governor Darrell Keys, and I'm proud of this membership initiative and the team that now has produced 5 seminars as part of this series, which will run through April the 30th. We have highlighted some phenomenal Rotarians and their incredible journeys as part of this membership initiative. Our Rotary International theme for the year is Rotary Opens Opportunities, and the theme's image is an open door. All you need to do is walk through that door to find like-minded people who want to make the world a better place. Rotary is the platform, and you are the difference, and we invite you to join us. Please note, we encourage you to use the question and answer chat box below. So click on that to type in your questions as we go along, and we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. It's now my great honor and privilege to introduce today's moderator, Rotary International Director, Stephanie Urchick, who also recently initiated Rotary Works, a Rotary Zone 33 and 34 initiative that provides a hands-up to Rotarians and Rotaractors experiencing career changes and challenges. Welcome, Stephanie, and thank you for your vision.
Thank you, District Governor Darrell, and a very special welcome to the over 1,000 participants who have joined us today for another important presentation about membership growth and retention in Rotary. I am extremely honored to introduce today's guest panelists, past Rotary International President Barry Rassin and international speaker Rotarian Brian Rusch. Barry Rassin served as World President of Rotary International in 2018-19, leading, inspiring, and motivating more than 36,000 Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs in more than 200 countries around the globe. He serves the Rotary Foundation, successfully raising millions of dollars to support the good work of Rotary. And Barry has served as an RI training leader and as a seminar trainer for training leaders. He's a member of the Rotary Club of East Nassau, and he's a humanitarian at heart. His track record of success to make a difference is well documented, and the service that he and Esther, his wife, have provided throughout the Caribbean is nothing short of amazing. Barry is the founder of HandWash, the Haiti National Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene Strategy, a collaborative effort to bring potable water and satisfactory sanitation to every single citizen in Haiti. Barry loves his country and its people and works diligently to maintain a safe, healthy, and productive environment throughout the Bahamas and the Caribbean islands. He is a true servant leader. Brian Rusch is from California, USA, and the charter president of District 5150's first E-Club, the Rotary Club for Global Action. This is a unique club made up of charter members from countries all over the world. Brian's passion is working with our youth to inspire their own exploration of ethics and to reshape conversations on peace, equality, and forgiveness. He has run organizations for both Archbishop Desmond Tutu and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He was invited by Rotary International President Holger Kanak to serve on the DEI task force, and he brings a wealth of knowledge and enthusiasm on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Gentlemen, we'd like to begin our conversation by asking both of you to share your stories while focusing on the topic of why embracing diversity is so important in Rotary today. So Barry, let's begin with you. I understand you have a very interesting story to share with us.
Thank you so much, Director Stephanie, and thank you all for being here today. I'm sure all of us have experienced some sort of discrimination during our lifetimes. I want to give you some of mine. The first goes back to my dad. Born in Russia as a Russian Jew just before World War I, his family escaped to Scotland where they grew up. He went to University of Edinburgh, graduated #1 in his class as a surgeon, joined the Royal Air Force, was posted to the Bahamas in World War II to take care of the troops in Africa, Florida, and the Bahamas. I'm not sure how he did that, but enjoyed it and spent most of his time helping the local population. After the war, went back to England and applied to get a license to practice medicine in the Bahamas. Back in those days, it went to Parliament. Parliament had to make that decision. I didn't know this till after he died, and I found the parliamentary papers in his desk where Parliament had decided he could not get a license. They turned him down because he was a Jew. That was a shock to me. I couldn't believe it. But here we are in the Bahamas. So what happened? Some of the members of Parliament took it back to Parliament again. He had treated them as patients, and so they got that to turn around. And finally, we were able to move to the Bahamas, which has been my home ever since. That was an eye-opener when I saw it. Moving years ahead, my own experience. I'm administrator of Doctors Hospital in Hollywood, Florida. One of my doctors comes to me and says, please join my Rotary Club. Keep in mind, I'm a young 20s something running a hospital. The doctor is 65. Everybody in this club was older than him. I looked around and I said, nah, I don't see me doing that. My own discrimination, here I am, I'm discriminating against the elderly. I look back with horror, and I did not join Rotary at that time, not till I came home. So then I finally come home to start a new hospital, and here I'm, this naive young man, I'm gonna build the best hospital this country ever saw. Went around to every single doctor in the country, and absolutely no support whatsoever. Why? Some were discriminating because I was white. Some were discriminating because they perceived me as wealthy. Some were discriminating because they didn't like my dad, who had a very aggressive personality. And so it took me many years before I could actually get things off the ground. Finally, we did, though. Even the little things, going to the post office to get a package from the post office, I couldn't figure out why it was taking me 45 minutes and everybody else would be able to turn it around in 10 minutes. Even the customs officers were discriminating against this young white man that they perceived as American, even though I am Bahamian. Moving forward to my own Rotary Club, and it's one of the best Rotary clubs, amazing service. We do incredible things. We could raise $250,000 a year and do fantastic projects. That is amazing. And yet we had no women in the club. And the club kept voting not to bring women in the club. So a friend of mine and I got together. He was my sponsor in Rotary, John Robertson, now a past district governor. And we said, we've got to change this. So we nominated 3 young ladies, one my daughter, one my niece, and a friend of his. And we were summoned to a meeting by some of the senior members of the club and said, don't do this, withdraw those nominations. We said, no, this is the right thing to do. We've got to open this club up and stop the discrimination. So we went to the board agreed, and that was the beginning of a whole new club. We've always been good, but that changed us. We now had gender diversity. That also brought an age diversity. We improved significantly from that moment in time. I don't take credit for that. I take credit for the board making the right decision at the right time for us. And one more I want to tell you. I'm at a board meeting of Rotary International, probably some 12, 13 years ago. And we were talking about we need more females in Rotary. And as we're talking about diversity, I'm saying, and I told the committee, I said, okay, we do need more gender diversity. We need more age diversity, but why aren't we talking about race? Why aren't we, when we look around clubs, especially in the United States, I don't see a lot of Black faces. Why aren't we talking about that? I was told by a member of the staff at that meeting, that's not something we can talk about. That was a shock to me. I said, this is crazy. What am I? I'm couldn't understand it. After the meeting, there was a young Black man in the room who I didn't even realize was there. He was a staff member sitting in the back of the room. That wasn't prejudice, okay? That's just where the staff sit at a meeting like that. And afterwards, he came to me and he said, thank you. We need to have the discussion. We need to open it up. We need to be honest, and we need to talk to each other about this. So that's just some of my experience over time. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Stephanie.
Wow, Barry, thank you. Those really are interesting stories. So, Brian, you were honored to work with and represent two amazing men in our world. Would you please share with us some experiences while serving Archbishop Desmond Tutu and His Holiness the Dalai Lama?
Sure, Stephanie, and thanks so much. Before I do that, I want to just say how wonderful it is to be part of this today. You know, I've attended some of the Infinite Possibility events in the past, and so it's thrilling for me to be here with you and Barry and 1,200 of our best friends today. And you're right, I've had some of the most amazing opportunities in my life to work with really amazing people, and I could talk about it for an hour, but I know we got a timeline, so I'll try and get through it as quick as I can. As it applies to DEI specifically, my experiences working with both His Holiness and the Archbishop have taught me an amazing amount. I actually met Archbishop Tutu through the Dalai Lama, and the first thing that struck me when I met him was just this amazing bond that the two men shared. You know, these are two guys who on the surface could not be any more different. One's a Christian, one's a Buddhist. You know, they come from very different parts of the world. But when they met, they had this connection on what they had in common, not what separates them. And that was the focus. They really focused on the struggles that they'd had in their lives, the wanting to represent their people. And that was really what started that amazing relationship. And you know, they always acknowledged the differences that they had, and they respected them. And you know, they've gotten to the point now where they're even comfortable enough with each other to joke about those things. But the thing that's so important is they also recognize their commonality, their shared humanity. You know, when I was working with the Archbishop, he taught me the Southern African concept, which I often talk about when I speak, and it's the concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu loosely translates to I am because we are. My humanity is bound up, it's inextricably tied up in yours, and we can only be human together. And so I try to remember in everything that I do, whether that's in my Rotary life or my professional life or my personal life and my interactions with people, that I need to bring that concept into my life. You know, the title of this Infinite Possibilities series is Embracing Our Differences, and that's really what Ubuntu speaks to. It's how embracing our differences really helps to strengthen our friendships and our relationships, and it's going to strengthen our clubs and our communities. When I was running the Archbishop's Foundation here in the States, I launched a program called Peace 3, and that was something that really, when I created it, it blended the secular ethical teachings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and blended it with the wisdom of Desmond Tutu. And Peace 3 stood for peace within, peace between, and peace among. And it's really based in, if we identify what brings us peace within or an inner peace, whether that's through prayer or meditation or long walks on the beach, it's that thing is going to be very personal to all of us. But it's going to lead to us having peace with our families and our friends and our communities and within our clubs. And ultimately, I feel that that's going to lead to peace among nations. Stephanie, as I said, I can talk about this stuff for hours, but I think that the key takeaway that I learned from these great men is that when I try to use these concepts as a baseline that feed both my work and my interpersonal relationships as I move through the world.
Wow, Brian, what an amazing experience and opportunity you had. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you gentlemen, for sharing those great stories. Barry, can you comment on some very specific concepts that help motivate our clubs to embrace diversity in their membership goals?
Thank you, Stephanie. First thing we have to do as clubs is to be honest with ourselves. We have to sit around a table as members of the club and say, do we represent our community? And when you look around the club and you don't see groupings that are in your community, then be proactive. I remember with classifications years ago, we used to look around and we said, we don't have a plumber in the club, let's go find a plumber. It's the same kind of concept. If we don't have a woman, let's go find some good women. We don't have younger people, let's go find some younger people. We don't have Blacks, let's go find some. We don't have the LGBTQ group, then let's go find them. Let's get everybody from our communities into our club. How better can we represent our community unless we actually have them there? And also be data-driven. Find out who is in your community on a technical level so you know what's there, and then be proactive and to go get them.
Great, Barry, great. Brian, here's a question for you. Since you have had such great experience with two men who were renowned for promoting peace, how can Rotarians better become peace builders in their communities through membership?
Stephanie, that's an excellent question. Archbishop Tutu has said once that our differences are not intended to separate us, nor to alienate us, and that we're different precisely because in order to realize that we need each other. And so I think when, as Rotarians, we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, I find that sometimes when we have these conversations, people shut down and they feel that this is a political issue and that Rotary, it's not something that Rotary should be involved in. But the reality is this is a humanitarian issue. This is something that we're talking about. We're talking about our common humanity. And more than that, it's a membership issue. And I think that that's really one of the things that I talk about often is that, we want to build membership. And so we need to take these steps to be as inclusive as we possibly can to everyone in our communities, very much as Barry's saying. And I think that the focus, oftentimes when we have these conversations, and one of the reasons that people avoid them is because we focus so much on obvious diversity, race or age or gender. But I think that one of the things that we need to look at is, are we really making our clubs truly inclusive to members? Are we enabling online meetings, for example, that are closed captioned, so members with hearing loss can participate in them? Do we have club atmospheres that are welcoming to parents of young children? How many of our social events exclude people who don't consume alcohol? Those are all tied up in the diversity conversation, and it's things that we need to start looking at when we have this, because it really is conducive to building stronger clubs and better membership. Now, I'm also a realist, so I think that we're never going to be everything to every person. But I think that if we consider how we can expand DEI in our clubs, it opens the door to potential new members. And a diverse membership ultimately is going to help lead to peace. When we're in a meeting or we're working side by side on projects with someone who, on the surface is different than us, I think that is when we're able to have that connection, to share our humanity, and we start to realize more what we have in common with these people rather than what's dividing us from them. And Stephanie, I think that when we start this on the club level, it really helps us to take a look at our projects and the needs of our communities through a different lens. Hopefully this piece that we can build within our clubs through diversity is something that we can really expand out into our communities and ultimately beyond even that.
Those are great reminders, Brian. Thank you so much. Barry, you are generally recognized as the Rotarian who helped take Rotaract from being a program to becoming equal partners in our Rotary experience. So I wondered if you could share with us the value proposition that Rotaract provides as we think about it as a conduit to membership growth and retention.
Absolutely, Stephanie. You know, Rotaract, I believe, is a part of Rotary that we have overlooked for too many years. And we've come a long way in the last 2 years. They're there. They're young, professional adults who want to do service and make our world a better place. They think differently than us. They have a different perspective, but they understand today's world in some ways a lot better than us elderly folks do. They're way ahead of us when it comes to inclusivity. Just look, they're already more than 50-50 male-female. They're obviously already got the right age going. And we don't want them to get us old folks in it because that would change their dynamics. But that's okay. But they can show us the way. They can show us what today's world, they can show us how we should deal with change. My discussion with them is you need the courage to join Rotary clubs so you can help Rotary clubs adjust their culture and be more relevant today. They could be a gigantic help for us to change the culture of Rotary clubs, which is what we need most. We've changed a lot of policies, but it's the Rotaractors and the Rotarians who need to change the culture of how we work together. We need to listen to them better than we ever did before. We need to adjust our cultures, and then they're going to want to join Rotary. Imagine if half of the Rotaractors, when they age out, and remember there's no maximum, whenever they're ready, if they join Rotary, we're finally going to see a growth in membership in Rotary. They are key to making us a better organization. And I want to see our Rotary clubs change our cultures so that we can be more relevant to them.
So Brian, how about you? What's your perspective about why youth service is so important to the future of Rotary as we think about embracing diversity?
Wow, Stephanie, I love this question because it gives me the opportunity to speak about something that I am just so passionate about. As a lot of you know, my journey to becoming a peace leader actually began at the age of 16 when I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student to Brazil. And I went from this tiny little mountain town of 350 people to a city in Brazil with more than 4 million people. And in Rotary, we have some standard talking points about what young people are getting out of youth exchange. They develop lifelong leadership skills and could learn new languages and cultures, and they build lasting friendships, and they become global citizens. And that piece is the one that sticks out for me the most. You get to become a global citizen. And I think for many young people, I know for me this was the case, it's the first opportunity that some of us have to truly connect with people that are different than us. You know, my town was in the mountains of Colorado. It was very white. My high school class was 60 people. So when I suddenly was thrust into this new world, it changed my worldview. So to your question as to why youth service is important to Rotary's future, it's these programs that should be giving us our next generation of members. I got sold on Rotary because my involvement as an exchange student. And so I think whether through Rotaract or Interact or RILA or whatever the youth program is, we have young people who are our future and they're already excited about Rotary. We just need to figure out how to bridge that gap. And I think embracing diversity is the key. You know, as Barry mentioned, Rotaract is already way ahead of us when it comes to diversity. And this happens organically with them. They aren't trying to make it happen. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as Rotarians that we start creating spaces in our clubs to encourage an intergenerational dialogue. You know, the young people of today are the best hope that we have of keeping Rotary relevant. But more than that, they're our hope for how we can transform cultures of war and violence into cultures of peace and prosperity. When we're giving young people interactive and stimulating opportunities in our organization, we're more likely to see them foster principles of nonviolence and equality and compassion and integrity. And Stephanie, I want to highlight 2 things really quick. First is, when we start looking at young people to bring them into the clubs, we need to look at them as equals. We should not be looking at them as that we're having this mentor-mentee relationship. They need to be coming into our clubs as full equals because they're bringing new ideas and energy to our organization, and we have to create space for that. And I'm specifically speaking to a lot of my Rotaract friends and the younger people who might be on right now. But we have to recognize that more seasoned Rotarians have so much wisdom to share with us. And that wisdom is so valuable. So much of my life has benefited from the wisdom of people that are older than me. And I think it's through this mutual respect and valuing a diversity of experiences that Rotary is going to continue to thrive.
Great, great, both of you. What fabulous insights. But there's never enough time. As Brian has suggested, we could talk on this topic for hours and hours and hours, but we are going to move on to our question and answer session. I want to thank you both. We expected great and we were not disappointed. And as you can imagine, we already have a lot of questions. And remember, as a reminder, if you are participating today, please remember to put your questions in the Q&A area. That button is at the bottom of your screen or at the top of it if you are on an iPad today. All right, Pete, Dora, I think you're going to be monitoring our questions.
Well, I'm certainly going to pass along some of the many questions we've received. And perhaps a great place to start is with the question, this question that follows. What exactly do you consider to be the culture of Rotary in the US and in countries outside the US?
Barry, why don't you field that question as a past Rotary International president? I'm sure you've seen a lot of cultural differences.
Wow, that's a tough question. But you want me to be honest, right? First of all, it varies. You can't put all the clubs into one bucket. That just doesn't work. But too often we see clubs that are not connected to Rotary International. They really don't understand what the strategic plan, what the future, what the vision is of Rotary. They're doing their own thing as a club. And that to some degree is true around the world. But I think more in other countries look at Rotary as an opportunity for themselves to grow and an opportunity for their communities to grow. But in the US especially, it's more contained. I'm in my club, I'm with my friends. We don't think about growing as we should. We don't really think about representing our communities. And again, I hate to talk in generalities because I know there's a lot that are different than that. But the culture in general is that we're too isolated in our own clubs. We're not opening and listening to people outside our club. We're not listening to our Rotaractors. And Rotaract is weak in the United States. It's much stronger in other countries. And if we have those conversations with young professionals and recognize that, yes, they really want to help the world be a better place. They love what we do to make the world better, but they don't like the way we do it. Hey, let's change the way we do it. So they want to do it with us. That's what it is. That's the piece of the culture that we could change if we just step back and ask ourselves, what can we do to be more relevant?
Great.
So another question that I think gets us at something we're hearing from a lot of people is, how do we recruit Blacks to a predominantly older white club when they feel like they are not welcome?
I think I'll ask both of our panelists to comment on that. Brian, let's start with you.
Well, I think that first of all, the goal shouldn't be let's recruit Blacks. I think that's what all of us need to do is we need to take a look at our clubs and our communities and how we can make our club reflect our community. And so if you're in Oakland, California, and your club is all white, then yes, you need to take a look at how your community is not being reflected. However, I think that there's this constant focus on how do we get this person in? How do we get more gay people in? How do we get more young people in? How do we do this? And I think that instead of that, really what we need to do is how are we showing the benefits of Rotary? How are we getting out there in our communities and partnering with LGBTQ plus organizations or African-American organizations or Black organizations in other parts of the world? What are we doing to partner with those organizations and show people why Rotary is an awesome organization and it's something that they want to be part of? Because that is then you're not trying to do it. People want to, and I think that that's kind of the key. I started this new club last year. It's a global club. So we're made up with members from 17 countries right now. And I have on average 4 people a week that want to become a member of the club. And I'm not going out and trying to do it. We're just doing our thing and we're putting it out there and letting people know what we're doing and connecting with people through that. And that's making people want to be part of what we're doing. And I think that that's key, is you really have to, through your projects, through your programs, and through your service, incentivize people that they want to be part of what you're doing and not just trying to tick off some boxes.
Super. How about you, Barry?
I think Brian is absolutely spot on. That's exactly right. We need to get the reputation of Rotary and who we are so the community members know that they want to join us. But we have to be proactive with it as well. We have to look at our community. Who are the leaders in our community? Black, white, disabled, whatever. And let's go talk to them. It's all about creating relationships in my mind. If you have a relationship with somebody, it's very easy then to listen, hear, and want them to be a part of what you do. So we need to go out there and create those kind of relationships, but we need to be proactive. And I think that's the piece that we're missing. We're just waiting for people to come to us. Brian's in a very lucky position because he's got the reputation as a club, so people are drawn. And that's what other clubs need to think about. How do we change our culture so people are drawn to join us, and then create those relationships so that leaders in our community say, I want to make a difference, then it's the Rotary Club that I need to join. That's a major way to get it. And they need to know that we are open to all parts of our society. When they look at it all, an elderly, all white club, why would they join? Whether it's gender, age, race, it's simply, it's obviously they have a problem. I don't want to be a part of it. We need to change our image, change our reputation, and show not only the amazing service we do, but the amazing networking we do within the club, and the fact that we're open arms to everybody in our communities.
I hear you both saying that we have to get better at making our clubs more appealing. And so that's a great recommendation. Pete, what's next?
So how about this one? What advice can you give for ways to open the conversation and gain support to introduce DEI into a club?
Brian, I'll let you field that one.
So this is a conversation that's been coming up a lot, I think, often in the last year more so than before. And you know, for the way that I've really been approaching it, and we kind of talked about this earlier, is through this membership lens. You know, I'm a current president, I'm a president-elect, and I'm sitting in these council meetings with other people in my district, and people are like, how do we get more members? What are we doing to get more members? And this is how we're getting more members. This is it's very easy. If you start looking at what you can do to make your club more inclusive, your membership will grow. And that is, so that DEI lens is really how you need to start looking at everything that you're doing as a club. So for example, if your community tends to be more, you know, young parents, well, if, you know, what are you doing to enable a mom who can't get a babysitter to have her kid at a meeting? Is that something that your club is open to doing? Because that's something that, you know, my last club, my sponsor club, Peninsula Starlight, did that, and it's been amazing. We have kids that sit there, we make their own little badges, they have their headphones, they don't bother the meeting at all, and it allows for parents who maybe wouldn't be able to be part of Rotary to be part of Rotary. You know, I go back to this alcohol thing. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for 27 years. And when we do events, so many of them are focused on alcohol. Well, that, you know, honestly, it puts out people who don't drink for religious reasons. It puts out people that don't drink for health reasons. There's a whole lot of things. And so I think that really we need to start looking at how diversity can really enhance our clubs and enhance membership ultimately. And I think that that's really the key to that conversation.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Brian. You know, one of our priorities of our strategic plan is to expand our reach, and that speaks to diversifying our membership. And as a reminder, you know, our organization has core values, 5 of them, and one of them is diversity. So we really need to unpack that and understand what it means so that we then can better better target our activities and our climate in our clubs and what we're doing to attract people who might not look like us. You're right. Barry, do you want to add anything to that?
You know, I think we have to have those conversations at the club, as we've talked about, open and honest, and we've got to bring everybody involved. Those who don't want to talk about it need to also be there to hear and to be part of the conversation. But I also think we need to start talking outside of ourselves. I find in Rotary, we are so good at talking to our clubs. We have district conferences where we talk to each other. We have institutes where we talk to each other. We have a convention where we talk to each other. We need to be talking to our communities about who we are and what we do. And they can help us to take that next step. And they're going to tell us honestly, well, I would join if you did this or that. If we listen carefully and make the changes they recommend, we could change our culture. But we've got to start talking to non-Rotarians. I think that's a key to where we go. But first, our Rotarians have to understand.
I would agree with that as well. You know, you're right. We talk to ourselves. We need to have more public-facing activities so that more people can understand who we are, and that could also take us into that realm of diversity. So, Pete, what else do we have in the Q&A?
Well, we've got a request that you share what concerns senior Rotarians in leadership positions in RI may have about DEI.
Okay, Barry, as a senior leader in Rotary, I'll give that to you first.
Oh, that's a tough question. I don't want to know who asked that question. You know, I don't think senior leaders have a problem with DEI. I just think we're so consumed with all the things that Rotary is doing. And we are a very complex organization. We've got I mean, you think we're going to do 2,800 grants this year. We've got Peace Fellows, we've got VTTs. We've got so much going on as an organization. You know, a trustee meeting can take 2 to 4 hours a month, and we never quite finish. The board is doing the same thing, and their executive committee is meeting 2-3 times a month. It's just so much to do and to look at that we don't step back and ask ourselves about this kind of question. We need the think tank with the senior leaders as to how we do better at DEI, and we're doing it this year. I mean, the reason I gave the example from 12 years ago when the committee didn't want to hear about race, because that's not us anymore. We are doing, our senior leaders have embraced it. We have a committee that's been asked to do what we need to do to change our outlook and our thinking. So I think at this point in time, our senior leaders are embracing the change, want to change, and want to show that we can do this. And if we do, the success that we're going to have is greater than we've ever seen before.
Right, and you know, the board of directors recently took the action to create a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force. And as you heard, Brian is one of the people that's involved in the work of that task force. And I think that task force will bring forward recommendations that can help move our organization forward as we look at how do we make our clubs so irresistible that everybody in our communities are interested in coming aboard. Brian, you're smiling. Did I say something that tickled you or brought some question to mind?
Well, I'm really thrilled, first of all, to be part of the DEI task force. Myself and the other task force members and the representatives of the board and trustees that are on the task force, I think that all of us are really passionate about bringing this forward and having these conversations. And I think that you know, I'm not senior leadership. I know a lot of senior leaders, but I have seen a commitment on the part of most senior leadership to really have these conversations. And sometimes they're difficult conversations to have because, you know, not everybody wants to have them, but we need to just start having these conversations, and we need to start addressing the issues when they come up, and we need to start taking steps to address things before they come up so we don't have issues going forward.
Sure. Pete, what else do we have? Q&A.
Well, we've got several people who have asked in one way or another what you think about the choice between starting a new club to solve this problem versus retrofitting our old clubs.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to let both of you tackle that. Barry, you first.
Yeah, I've talked about this in the past. I think there's two options. One, the club itself, if they need to talk about how they could change. But you know, if we have a club of 65-year-olds and they're doing good service and they don't want to change, let them keep doing their service and let's start a new club right next door where we can really bring in what Rotary is today. We don't want to force people to get uncomfortable. They're doing good service. They're helping make our world better. But let's start some new clubs. Let's get away from this where we have in the past had local clubs control the whole community and can't start another club. In my mind, let's start those clubs. Let's get new people involved who want to. I tell Rotaract all the time, if you don't have the courage to join that club and help them change, then just start your own Rotary club, just for people who are coming out of Rotaract and your friends, and you're going to grow and develop. We need that, and we should encourage the new clubs. Keep reminding our Rotarian friends that we need to change our culture. Keep helping them with that. Keep bringing new ideas to them to consider and ask them to listen, but don't get forceful. Just start a new club next door and then they're going to see the light.
And what are your thoughts about that, Brian?
Well, you know, I actually disagree slightly with Barry because I'm somebody who likes to force people to get uncomfortable. and I think, you know, last year, this actually came up for me because during the Black Lives Matter protests, I really felt like we needed to have more conversations around this in our clubs, in our district, and it came up for me because there was someone who had I was a charter member of San Francisco Castro, which is the first LGBTQ cultured club in the world, and we had some Black members who had come that didn't feel comfortable with the culture at that time. Now, since then, it's evolved quite a bit, and it's a much more welcoming space. But what I noticed was that when I pointed this out to some people, they're like, "Oh, well, they should just start their own club." And I'm like, well, these are people that are new Rotarians, first of all. So they don't, I just started a new club, and I can tell you, it's not super easy. You know, there's a lot of things that, whether it's, you know, the logistics of dealing with RI or the state of California, whatever it is that you have to go through, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So you have to be passionate about why you're starting that club, right? So I think that it's not an either or, it's a both and. Like, I think that we need to start looking at our current clubs. They need to start looking at their current clubs and how they can evolve somewhat to embrace a little bit more diversity, whatever that means for that club, right? I have a friend in Northern California who said once, "Oh, well, we don't have any diversity here. You know, everybody's just white and older." And I'm like, that's just not true. I know many, for example, lesbians that live in the same part of that world that she does. There's people with different abilities, and there are people of color. There's a huge Latinx community that lives in that area. So really, that there is something you do. Now, I think the idea of Rotaractors getting together and starting their own clubs is awesome if they can do that. Personally, one of the things that we've been trying to do is encourage dual membership with Rotaract, get them involved in our clubs, remove obstacles for people to be members, like whether that's financial or time or whatever that is. How can we create an atmosphere within our club that really encourages people to want to be part of that and makes it easy for them to be part of it? And I find that that's really a key thing, and it really is helping to bridge that gap between Rotaractors and Rotarians. How do we get Rotaractors involved with Rotary? Well, Rotaractors have a good thing going. I speak at Rotaract all the time. I do a lot with Rotaract. It's fun. It's a lot. It's a great organization, and they do amazing things. And so sometimes I get asked by Rotaractors, why would I want to get involved with Rotary? Well, again, it's like, let's remove these obstacles. Come check it out. Come see why you want to get involved with Rotary, because there are ways that there are things that Rotary offers that Rotaractors don't have available to them, especially those that are leaders in the Rotaract world that may ultimately want to move up within the Rotary world. They have to be Rotarians to do that. And so I think that we need to start looking at how we can encourage more of that.
Great ideas and strategies from both of you. A lot to consider. Pete, what else do we have in the Q&A?
Well, Barry, we have a question from a great friend, Deepa Willingham, who's asking, is the RI board ever going to do anything about clubs that still do not allow women membership?
Thank you, Deepa. I can't speak for the RI board. You know, it comes up as a conversation on a regular basis, but it goes back to what Brian and I have a little disagreement about, is how you force people to change. We now have all male clubs and we have all female clubs. Do we want either one? No, I don't think it's right. But don't we need to provide the reasoning to those clubs as to why they should change, as opposed to saying, we're going to pull the plug, you're no longer going to be a Rotary club because you're all men. They're helping their community. And to me, you got to keep your eye on that ball. They're helping their community, they're doing good service. They're wrong in what they're doing. I mean, if they pulled the plug on my club, we wouldn't exist today because we didn't have women in the club. And we didn't make that change until around 2003. So we were really late to the table, but we were doing good service. Yeah, it's not right, but I don't see the Rotary board at this point in time anyway, shutting the door completely on all male or all female clubs. Should we do it? That's going to be a debate, I'm sure, that's going to get more and more feverish as we move forward. But I don't think that's going to happen myself.
Jerry, I like your concept of sharing the why, because education is enlightenment. So, you know, as leaders, we have a responsibility to continue to educate people about best behaviors and strategies that'll work. Pete, let's have another question.
Okay. There are several people who have pointed out that we're having this discussion about inclusiveness and diversity within Rotary, and are asking what role we should play in encouraging those characteristics in the communities we serve.
Okay, that's a good question. Brian, do you want to start with that?
Well, I think that this, first of all, this is coming back to the individual, right? Like as we have these conversations, you know, Rotary is having this conversation, and we're having this conversation within Rotary because we're Rotarians, and that's the microcosm of the world that we're having this discussion in at the moment. However, I think that when Rotary steps up and is a leader on these conversations within the organization and publicly, that is then fostering this conversation in their communities. So, you know, I go back to last year after the Black Lives Matter protests, when Rotary and when the board made a statement about that, you know, there's many people, some people didn't think it went far enough, some people thought it went way too far, but that then started a conversation of Rotary's role in the world. And, you know, we like to talk often about how Rotary is not a political organization. The reality is Rotary is a very political organization. It's a nonpartisan organization, but, you know, I mean, we helped to start the United Nations. We are, we very much have done quite a bit in the world of politics. And so I think that it's important, you know, because these conversations are conversations about humanity. This is not conversations about politics. And that, you know, President Holger released a statement via social media last week, really driving down more into what Rotary's stance was on many of these topics. And I think that in doing so, that once again shows that Rotary is a leader in, or is trying to be a leader in these areas and taking steps to be a leader in these areas. And that ultimately takes steps to show your communities, whether that's a global community. So when we have these voices where diversity is important, and we have our Rotarians at the United Nations being part of this conversation, that's important. And so I do think that while, yes, it seems like we're having sort of a limited conversation just with ourselves, really this conversation is getting out to many more people. I mean, I know for a fact there's a lot of my friends on this call right now who are not Rotarians. They just found out about this because it was blasted out to all the people that I blast things to. And so I think that knowing that we're having this conversation is changing perspectives, it's changing minds, and it's changing attitudes about what Rotary is. And that ultimately is great for our organization, and it's great for our communities.
Great. And Brian, I hope you invite them to any of your upcoming Zoom meetings so that they can learn more about Rotary. And Barry, how about you? Do you want to add anything to that question? Any comment about how we deal with that?
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think that's the way to go. I have nothing more to add to that.
Okay, super. Pete, we probably have time for maybe one more question.
Yes, and I think we have a good one. As we change from what we are to what we want to become, what can we do to avoid having people feel like tokens as members of our club?
I think that, you know, another key thing is that when any new member comes in, but specifically if it's building diversity within your club, you have to remember that those people are not responsible for taking on that role for the club. If you have a Black member who joins your club, that person is not responsible for teaching your club about the Black experience or being that person for you. It's you're having that person come in, hopefully, because that person is an engaging, awesome member of the community that you want to be part of your club, that's going to grow your club. You know, I personally, yes, I lean into the gay thing, and I'm fine with that, and I'm very public and open about that. But not everybody's comfortable with that. And so, you know, if people don't want to have that conversation, don't force that. Get to know the person as a person within your club like you would anybody else in your club. And the rest of it's going to be kind of like organic.
Thank you both. Pete?
Well, as always, sadly, there are a lot more questions than we have time for. So thank you, Stephanie, Barry, and Brian for an outstanding discussion. We will now turn this over to Rotary International Director Peter Kyle, who will share some additional information.
Thank you, Pete. Wow, what an amazing session. This has just been fantastic. So my congratulations to all concerned as well. So this seminar has been designed to open the line of communication as a part of your membership initiative, recognizing the strength in our diversity. Rotary is a great organization represented by incredible individuals. And we are people of action. So we ask you to take action right now. And may I suggest the following 4 steps. First, contact past District Governor Pete Dora to find out more information about the Rotary Action Group, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. This action group is in the process of being created, and we're looking for great people to get involved. Second, as part of this series, we are supporting Zones 33 and 34 Rotary Works Initiative, which is a new initiative started by Rotary International Director Stephanie Urchick to help Rotarians and Rotaractors experiencing career transition. Contact information is available on your screen. Third, not yet a Rotarian? Would like to join us? Please contact past District Governor Cindy Dora or reach out to a local Rotary Club to find out more. We need you, but more importantly, your community needs you. Fourth and final, strive to do more. Lean in and step up to leadership positions. Your clubs and your communities need you. So here to tell you more about our upcoming series on diversity, equity, and inclusion is the chair of Infinite Possibilities, past District Governor Cindy Dora.
Wow, what an amazing conversation we've had today. You know, we touched on some topics that Barry and Brian were right on. People just don't want to talk about it. So let me just thank Director Stephanie. Let me thank past Rotary National President Barry, and my goodness, Brian, we're so appreciative that you took the time to be with us today. The conversations are so needed, and they will make a difference in so many lives. So let's take it all to heart, and let's just embrace the beauty of our world and the fact that we're all different, but we're the same. So thank you for being with us today. As Rotarians, it's really our duty to share our time our talent, and our treasures to make this world a better place. And that's what this entire series on infinite possibilities is all about, talking about issues that make a difference in our world. So real quickly, I want to talk about the future, because next month we're going to have an amazing speaker with us. Xavier Ramey is going to join us. He is just a huge personality, very dynamic, very outspoken, but really on spot and on topic as it relates to our topic with infinite possibilities, diversity, equity, and inclusion. He's going to focus on investing in equity. So please make a point of joining us next month, March 26th, so that you can hear Xavier. But also, we're going to wrap it all up with this series in April, on April the 30th. So mark your calendars now. For your convenience, we have a slide up on the screen that will give you the information to register for these events, but please let us know if you have any challenges in that regard, and we're happy to help you out. Finally, we are recording every one of these sessions, so please take advantage of that. Use these sessions as a Rotary program. Bring it to your club. Bring it to your district and share it with your members, because together we are bigger and better and bolder. And many of us have heard those words before, but they're so spot on. So again, on behalf of District Governor Darrell Keys, District 6960, and Zones 3334, our directors Stephanie and Peter Kyle, and our special guests today, Barry and Brian, we want to thank you for joining us. The entire team wants to remind you, as Rotarians, we are people of action. We are here every day to make a difference in the world, and we want you to join us. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day and a great weekend. Thank you.